Hey guys, for today's video, I have my good friend Kurt Zock with me today. What we're going to talk about today is really good musical soundtracks in film. It's the soundtracks that are not only really good that you remember these films for their music, but what we're going to do is we're going to share the scores that, like what Kurt was saying earlier when we came up with this idea of the video, they kind of just stick in your head for a while and they almost make you think of the film immediately as soon as that score gets into your head. So, Kurt, I know you have a lot of titles to share with
Oh
us
yeah,
today.
I don't know if I'm gonna get through all of them.
So, why don't you go with your first round, and then I'll see if I can fit in some of my choices
Right.
too. So,
Well, when we came up with the topic, the first thing that came to my mind was 500 Days of Summer. It's one of my favorite movies of all time for a number of reasons, but part of it is the soundtrack, which is, I think, just perfect for the movie itself. If you actually go through it and pay attention, the soundtrack adds so much to the movie because it's really appropriate at all times, right, Tom? Because um, there's I'm blanking out right now. There's Sweet Disposition, which plays I think at two different times when he's with Summer. They're going through the downtown area, showing her off all the different architectural stuff, and then also it happens again in the Reprieve when they're on the train ride back to after the wedding. Yeah. Then there's also You Make My Dreams Come True, which happens, kind of at the halfway point when he finally scores with her. That it gives you the impression that he had made it in his mind. That was the goal. That's what he was going for, and he made it. And you could tell that is what he wanted. And there's other stuff like Regina Spektor. She has at least two songs in it. At the beginning, during the opening credits, she has I think it's called Us. Yeah, that plays at the beginning, and that sets the tone for the entire movie. It's the song itself is kind of melancholy, but it's also a little bit optimistic. And the lyrics themselves also are very fitting for the movie as well. And then she comes up again when kind of near the end when he gets all depressed because he finds out he can't be with her at all. She's engaged. Sorry for spoilers.
mm-hmm.
Um, and so he kind of wanders off while Hero is playing, and you're just so depressed, and you want to cheer for him. And then it turns around again, right near the end, when he gets back into his groove, and then Vagabond plays. He bounces that ball to the beat to it to get into it. Then it just erupts into this cacophony of a wonderful song. And just it makes you want to be optimistic for him and how good it's going to be, and like things are going to be better for him, even though he's not with the woman he wants. Things have turned around for him, and I could go on so much more for 500 Days of Summer.
But it is a very good score. I agree. It's definitely a score that really shows kind of how his name is Tom in the movie, right?
Yeah.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt. Kind of represents how he feels throughout the movie. I think the musical score in that film represents kind of the, that his relationship with Summer is very mystical, very, very much a happy and a sad time of his life. And I think the score of this film really represents kind of the mood he's been feeling throughout the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So, what are some other titles you have with us?
Let's see. I have The Big Lebowski. I love Big Lebowski, and I don't know it enough to talk about it in length that I did for 500 Days of Summer, but it's still very good.
Mm-hmm.
The part that stands out for is when he's hallucinating after that drug trip. After I forget the character's name, but he's the porn dealer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Jackie Treehorn, that's his character. After he meets Jackie Treehorn and he drugs him, then he goes on that trip while Kenny Rogers just dropped in is playing on it. That shot is that scene itself is just shot so well, but the music sells it.
Mm-hmm.
It just makes it so much more fun and entertaining, and that's the big musical part of that movie. But the entire rest of the film also has a fantastic soundtrack. I mean, I think it opened with Tumbling Tumbleweed, but I don't know who the singer was for that, unfortunately. But that it sets the tone in that part, at least the opening, for what the rest of the movie is going to be like. It's kind of like just a laid back, fun kind of.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like the film is very. I think the Coens definitely went into this film knowing that they couldn't treat this film too seriously. It had to have kind of this comedic, silly, lazy guy tone to it. And so I think the score for that movie really kind of, because one scene that really struck me as far as music goes is the scene where he's hallucinating with that bowling pin woman.
That's
that's definitely music wise. That's one of the more memorable scenes of the movie for me. and like even when he's like in his car smoking weed, like he's hitting the rooftop. It's just a very silly movie, and I think the
Yeah.
score really represents that silliness really well. So
But
I think, yeah.
like that part you just mentioned when he's in the car,
Hmm.
it ties in with his character. It shows just like another example of how he acts, and just that's what the dude is like.
Hmm.
And the soundtrack just helps make it.
And even on times where like it's just dead and he's just looking at his carpet, like there's like no music playing to kind of represent that it's dull and like nothing's
Yeah.
going on. And I
But
like how there's times of no music at all in the movie. It
Mhm.
almost kind of adds to the movie in a
But I
way.
mean, like the carpet thing, it shows that he's fine with that.
Mhm.
He's the dude, and that's his life, and there's no big deal.
Like even people leave a message like, and when you're done looking at your carpet, make sure to give me a call. So like even people admit that like, oh, yeah, you're looking at your carpet right now, aren't you?
Let's see. Pacific Rim came out recently.
That was a good score.
When we first saw the movie, the only time I saw it, I was immediately caught with the main theme. Like you can hear it played throughout the movie at very different times and different keys and different measures and different modes and different rhythms. It's the same melody, but like it's repeated throughout, and it's always different. But you can recognize it. You know what it is. A little bit of confession. After we saw the movie, I listened to the sound that just the main theme nonstop for like 3 hours. It was just so good.
Mhm.
And then like the other parts of it, the other renditions, they were just so much better. I mean, not better, so much just as good, but they were just great in their own way as well.
Yeah, I think the score of that movie, because like I remember when I'm like, oh, I don't know about that score, and then you show me the scene, like, wait, that is the Pacific Rim theme. Like it is kind of really instantly recognizable when you hear it, and I think what that score really represents is it does kind of have a like anime Toonami kind of feeling to it, and I kind of like that the score of that film kind of represented that old Toonami anime feeling. So I thought that
I
was
mean,
kind of neat.
not just Toonami, just anime in general, because the movie is heavily inspired by Japanese culture. I mean,
Mhm.
the whole word kaiju, that is Japanese. And the whole idea of mechas fighting giant monsters, that's Japanese.
Mhm.
And you can get that impression throughout the soundtrack.
Mhm.
So the soundtrack really borrows from that legacy, that heritage, and it really helps sell it.
Mhm.
Let's see. Next, well, I'll just kind of lump some stuff together here. I have Jurassic Park down, but I mean just John Williams in general.
Mhm.
Jurassic Park is just kind of to me one of his iconic, most memorable parts, especially the main theme.
Mhm.
Da, 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 da. Everybody knows that,
Mhm.
but he also has so many other themes like Indiana Jones.
Mhm.
Da, 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 da.
Mhm.
Oh, and then there's Back to the Future, but I don't know that off the top of my head.
Mhm.
But I mean, just John Williams is fantastic. Like when I think of specific composers,
Mhm.
he's number one in
Mhm.
terms of movie.
Mhm.
And then, there was also Crank. Crank, oh man. The movies themselves are great. Like, they're all supposed to be high octane, high energy, just non-stop thrill ride bullshit.
Mhm.
But, like, Crank, the soundtrack for Crank it mirrors that and just cranks it up to 11, appropriately enough. And Crank is a lot of fun, but if you were to watch it with the sound off, it kills it. Because, like, otherwise it's just a guy running around getting into fights, but, like, without the soundtrack to like really draw you in, it's kind of boring with just the action going on.
Mhm.
And so I guess it's your turn, Tom.
When it comes to really good musical scores for me, I'm a huge fan of the Rocky IV soundtrack, and what really impressed me about that one is it's the only Rocky film that didn't have Bill Conti as composer. Vince DiCola did the score for this movie, and ironically enough, even though Bill Conti did a terrific job with the other Rocky films, for me, Rocky IV, like, have you seen the training montage for that movie?
Which one is that?
Where he's in Russia.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the score in that training montage just really clicks for me. Burning Heart from Survivor was in the score. It just, for me, Rocky IV just has, even if you listen to the best of Rocky, more than likely most of the songs you hear are from Rocky IV. For me, just the fourth one, music-wise, I thought was the best. Another score that's really big with me simply because a lot of big musicians are a part of the score, and it just really fits what's going on in the movie, I thought, was Forrest Gump. I mean, we had Fleetwood Mac, we had Leonard Skinner, I think was the name of the band. We had a bunch of bands that really fit what's going on with the movie. I think my parents even own the Forrest Gump soundtrack just because there is so many big band names in the score. Like Forrest Gump, Fast Times at Ridgemont High was big for me also. It has a lot of 80s score songs. Has a lot of like kind of like with Forrest Gump, just songs that really represent what's going on with the movie. And Kurt actually really likes this one too, the score for Super 8.
Oh yeah.
By J.J. Abrams.
Well, I also had down just J.J. Abrams in general.
Yeah,
a lot of his movies are very.
I think the composer is like Michael Giacchino or something like that.
We should look at. We should give him proper respect, but whoever's behind it is just phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. In fact, I think they said Star Wars 7 is going to mark the first non-Michael Giacchino score for J.J. Abrams, because John Williams is going to come back.
Of course.
But yeah, Super 8. There's something about the score for that movie where like I almost was in tears when that movie opened, just because like wow, what is the score to this movie? It's so beautiful.
Oh yeah, I mean,
and like
the movie itself is very poignant, but the score just it helps.
Mm-hmm.
It makes it kind of magnifies it. It makes everything so much better.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's going to happen because not really what's going to happen. You kind of it sets the tone. That's what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like it definitely combined the feeling of E.T. and Goonies into the same movie, just like how J.J. Abrams approached Super 8. But yeah, I thought just the score for that movie was really beautiful, and there's even times throughout the day where it's like, I gotta listen to that Super 8 soundtrack again. 16 Candles is another one too, where it's made in the 80s. It was made at a time where big pop culture music was going into film. 16 Candles for me really dug at the heartstrings. Weird Science was another one for me, simply because it was one of Danny Elfman's first scores. It was back when he was a part of Oingo Boingo. Have you heard of that score?
No.
They were a band actually, and they did musical scores for movies a lot. And that was one of Danny Elfman's first experiences working for scores for movies. And the score used for Weird Science I thought was just absolutely terrific. John Hughes was another director that could choose really good composers and good musicians for his movies. And then the one I'm going to talk about next, and then I'm going to give it over to Kurt again, is The Avengers. Alan Silvestri from the Back to the Future films worked on the Avengers score. Still to this day, I had that score going through my head. I think it's just... Did you like the Avengers score?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Alan Silvestri really nailed it, I thought. I mean, he really brought this truly epic piece of music into the movie, which fits the movie perfectly because it's really epic. But I'm going to give it back to Kurt for a few more titles.
Well, one quick thing about the Avengers. There's that one part during the final battle sequence, and like they all get back together finally, and then the camera pans around them.
Mm-hmm.
The there's flashing.
Yes, that's one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Like the music, it builds to that, and then that's the payoff, and it just feels so good to experience that.
Yeah. There's even times where I just put on my Avengers DVD just to see that scene again, because it's just like, my God, that is like the most epic thing I've ever seen.
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that went into that, but the music, so good.
Yeah. Well, not only that, it's like, okay, you have Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, Hulk, and Black Widow all in the same show, and Hawkeye. It's like, Jesus Christ, you, Josh Whedon, I love you. I really do love you. I do.
Okay. Let's see. There's also Hans Zimmer, Inception, Dark Knight.
I can listen to the Inception score all day long.
That was like the big thing that kind of went mimetic after the movie came out. Is like, boom. Mm-hmm. It was just, I don't know what to say about it. It was just really good, and like, there was, I think it was the Edith Piaf song that they used to sync up the kicks that they used. The wah sound that you listen to, that's the song, the Edith Piaf song, slowed down.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so like if you were to take that long, drawn out, blaring sounds and speed it up, you get the Edith Piaf song. Mm-hmm. Like that's intentional. Like you're supposed to, at each level of the dream, depending on how slow time is for them, that's how slow the song is for them. So if you pay attention to that, that's a really neat touch.
Uh-huh.
It was just phenomenal. I didn't notice it. I found out about it online, but it was just mind-blowing to find out they went into that level of detail. Mm-hmm. And then Dark Knight. Oh, man, Dark Knight.
Another Hans Zimmer score. That's really good.
I mean, what is there to say?
Mm-hmm. I think, and we'll do this as a 2 or 3 part video, I think.
Yeah. We're not even halfway.
Yeah. The thing about the Dark Knight score, and I think even James Newton Howard helped Hans Zimmer with the score. I don't know who did the Joker, the Joker score part.
Yeah.
Whoever.
Theme.
Yeah. It really just intensifies the scene, I think.
This guy's not quite right on the head when that song plays.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about, because there was something about the making of that score where it's just like, okay, this is really getting intense. This is getting intense. This is getting intense. This is getting intense again. And it just gets to the point. Yeah, you feel like something's going to jump out. The
tension is building, and you're waiting for it to happen.
Yeah.
And when it finally does, it's like, wow.
Yeah. So, guys, we're going to return for part 2, but make sure to stick around because we have a lot more films to talk about.